AI chatbot OpenGPT, which is created by company OpenAI, is taking the world by storm. The New York described it as both brilliant and weird, and as it is, has gained over 1 million users in under a week. Fortune magazine says it's primed to disrupt search as we know it. Today, I sit down to discuss this with revolutionary technology with faculty guest Mr. Belmont, who was LHS's technology specialist and advisor of Robotics Club. Hello there, Mr. Belmont. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
All right. First off, what were your first impressions when learning about OpenGPT? Tell me.
So when I first heard about it, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And then I had heard that it was sort of way beyond any other AI chat sort of human voice recognition thing before. So I was skeptical at first, and then I tried it.
I can understand being skeptical. Actually, I've been a little skeptical of innovations in a while. Like ever since Mark Zuckerberg brought avatars to his Sims 2 characters.
That's right.
My God, the legs. This man's a genius. Give him $1 billion. All right. So I thought, how does OpenGPT differentiate itself from the other AI chatbots?
So the other AI chatbots that I've used before, the responses seemed pretty clunky. It didn't really emulate a typical conversation between people.
I mean, if you can, tell me a few that you used before.
I mean, the first one that I can remember is way back, and this is going way back. I used AOL Instant Messenger when I was in high school, and they had a chatbot called Smarter Child, and you would talk to it, and it would try to talk back to you. And the responses sometimes just never even made sense.
All right. Let's see. Are you feeling a little concerned that students are going to be using this to cheat on certain assignments using the chatbot?
I think that's an interesting question because I am concerned that students will start to rely on it more than they should. I think it's a pretty useful tool, but when used incorrectly, it can get in the way of learning.
Yeah, I'm thinking actually, is there a possibility that, if I'm going to add on to that, is there a possibility that, OpenGPT can be used for certain plagiarism when writing essays and such?
I think it can. It's tough because plagiarism typically is passing off someone else's work as your own. And because OpenGPT, it is based on things that exist, but it's technically a new thing. It sort of muddies the waters a bit as far as, is it plagiarism? So yeah, it's tough. It's an interesting problem.
Actually, tell me, what ways could the students use the technology for positive purposes?
So what I've seen so far is it is pretty good at taking writing and maybe adding some slight improvements to it or adjusting pre-existing things that have been written. So a student could maybe write a draft, and then this technology could be used to make suggestions that are tailored specifically for the student.
Or actually, it's well known that it can be used for helping debugging code for certain developers. Even on its own, it said it can even make scripts and such. Basically, if you ask it to make a script, it'll make a pretty good one for you. Basically, taking out the idea of actually writing it yourself. I mean, that kind of makes, if I can ask, would this make basic coding and programming and developers who have an interest in us, like you and me, it would kind of make us obsolete, would it not?
So I have a friend who he's a programmer for a company, and he's been talking to me about ChatGPT, and he said that one thing that it does really well is you can ask it questions about coding, how to do a certain task, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't do some of the more creative aspects of coding. It can't build a big ecosystem with different programs interacting together. And also, if you do ask it a question, it does a pretty good job of explaining it and teaching you. So I don't think that necessarily a technology like this would make fields like that obsolete. It might eliminate some of the lower level work, but I'm optimistic that it can actually help improve things. So I'm hoping those jobs don't just disappear.
Yeah, I hope so myself. And what ways can teachers use this technology to simplify or improve upon their work as an educator?
One of the first things I did when I used ChatGPT for the first time is I asked it to come up with potential lesson ideas for teaching characters in Romeo and Juliet. and it came up with 5 different lesson ideas, which they weren't brand new things that I've never heard of before, but I think it's good for certain brainstorming and getting ideas out there. And then also just to ask, to extend our knowledge as teachers of certain fields. So if a student asks us a question that maybe we don't know, that's a good resource to quickly get an answer that's easily understandable.
Yeah. Actually, another thing is ChatGPT is known for explaining the questions it receives in a comprehensive manner. Could this actually make ChatGPT a strong competitor towards Google?
I think it could be. I absolutely think so. And in my experience, if you're looking for a specific piece of information and you word it in the way you would ask a friend or somebody else, it does a better job of just giving you the answer instead of sifting through websites that may have questionable sources, or maybe it's not what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Well, actually, now that I think about it, do you think Google, out of fear of competition this strong, might eventually try and buy out ChatGPT and the parent company of OpenAI?
I wouldn't be too surprised. They are a for-profit company, so they probably would be accepting of being bought out. I wouldn't be too surprised about it. Can I add something quick?
Absolutely, go ahead.
One thing, a big drawback with ChatGPT is the fact that all of its information is taken from different sources on the internet, but it can't tell you specifically where the information is from, because as a teacher, we always tell students to cite their sources. And if they get information from ChatGPT, there's not a clear source, which is problematic as well.
I mean, aside from that, I was actually going to interject there. I'm thinking because I learned that Microsoft is a pretty big investor to ChatGPT and OpenAI and the company.
Oh, I didn't know.
So I'm thinking if anything, Microsoft is actually hoping, that, to keep OpenAI hopefully in their pockets. I'm only going to assume so. I mean, this actually only comes from a source of actually just watching a TV show, Silicon Valley, of basically where this one company had been bought out for $250 million. Though the investor of the current company, the protagonist company, had basically not had a certain limit to their company, so they didn't have a real profit to it. So basically, given that they had a limitless profit, made them somehow more better than the company that was bought out for $250 million. That's my only assumption. I don't have genuine real sources, but I think it's more or less just opinion of how it could work.
I think definitely could be. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Actually, as we also come around to say again, ChatGPT's websites, they give pretty plausible information. But not correct information. Are you concerned more about about misinformation and false statements being spread from other people that come from ChatGPT as a genuine source?
I am concerned about that. And right now, it's free to everybody because they're testing it, and they have a disclaimer that it could give misinformation. So I wonder who's vetting that information, and even if it's not explicitly false information, if maybe the information is biased, that could be an issue as well.
Yeah. Besides chatbots, what else are you noticing AI being used?
So OpenAI is also, they've developed DALL-E as well, which is the image generating algorithm they've made where you can create an image from a text prompt.
Yeah, AI art, right?
Yep.
I've heard a lot about that. I mean, it's a bit of my own opinion here. Sorry, once again. I kind of thought I like to see people making art rather than just inputting certain things to see in art. Aside from that, because I think it takes away the human experience of actually what art's meant to be, as there's supposed to be emotion and meaning to it.
I totally agree. I think, especially as someone who teaches writing as well, the process is that rewarding part. And same thing with making art, whether that's with paints or even digital art. There's a process, and I think that losing that would be tough.
Ultimately now, we're coming to the final thing. Do you think AI is going to be enriching? Will AI enrich, or is it going to be detrimental to the human experience?
I think this is where we all come in, because it's about how we use it and how we talk about it, how we, as teachers, how we teach about it. And I think it has the potential to be extremely enriching for society. But again, it's the matter of if it's misused, it could be detrimental. So I think that we're at a crossroads, and we need to think about how we're going to use it for good, but it definitely has that potential for good.
All right, Mr. Belmont, It has been a pleasure having you on my podcast here. All right, coming up next for next time, we will be discussing on how to make your phone more private, and in other words, also how to generally make your phone into a private one. This has been the Surveillance Spotlight. Until next time, remember, shine the light on surveillance, and signing off.